Word for word meaning, synonyms. Survey, all. Api, although apparently different. Ete, these. Yajnavidaha, conversant with the purpose of performing sacrifices. Yajnashapita, being cleansed as a result of such performances. Kalmashaha, of sinful reactions. Yajnashishta, of the result of such performances of yajna. Amritabhujaha, those who have tasted such nectar. Yanti, do approach. Brahma, the supreme. Sanatanam, eternal atmosphere. Translation: all these performers who know the meaning of sacrifice become cleansed of sinful reactions, and having tasted the nectar of the results of sacrifices, they advance toward the supreme eternal atmosphere. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada. From the foregoing explanation of different types of sacrifice, namely sacrifice of one's possessions, study of the Vedas, or philosophical doctrines, and performance of the yoga system, it is found that the common aim of all is to control the senses. Sense gratification is the root cause of material existence. Therefore, unless and until one is situated on a platform apart from sense gratification, there is no chance of one being elevated to the eternal platform of full knowledge, full bliss, and full life. This platform is in the eternal atmosphere of Brahman or Brahman atmosphere. All the above mentioned sacrifices help one to become cleansed of the sinful reactions of material existence. By this advancement in life, not only does one become happy and opulent in this life, but also at the end, he enters into the eternal kingdom of God, either merging into the impersonal Brahman or associating with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Hare Krishna. So, in today's verse, Srila Prabhupada is focusing on two different realms of existences. One is the realm of a spiritual atmosphere, and the other is a realm where we have to perform our activities, where we are presently. And the goal is, with the performance of these activities in the form of yajna, we could qualify ourselves to reach the abode of eternality, abode full of knowledge and full of bliss. This is Srila Prabhupada's words here. Elevated to the eternal platform of full knowledge, full bliss, and full life. So, in Sanskrit, that is called as Satchid Ananda, and full life. Purna Satchid Ananda. That is my concoction. So he's translating this Satchidananda as eternal platform of full knowledge. So Satchit, full bliss, Ananda, and full life. So anyone who reads Prabhupada's purport gets something extra. It is added bonus. Full life. Purnataya. And he says that if we are very good at such performances, then we could either connect with the impersonal platform of Brahman, or we could associate with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that is the end of the purport. So, sacrifices have been mentioned here in the previous verses, with its conclusion in today's verse and a couple of verses more. The reason being, Krishna had stated earlier in this chapter that by his blessings, men were sent forth, or humans were sent forth into this life, along with the requirement that they perform sacrifices. So, from Krishna's perspective in this chapter, every human has been, or every human has signed a contract while coming into this world that they perform sacrifices. So, what kind of sacrifices? So, to describe those sacrifices, Krishna has spoken a series of verses. Briefly, there's one's possessions that one has to sacrifice, one's relationships that one has to offer in sacrifices, or emotions, intelligence, one's very process of existence in this body in terms of breathing, one's sustenance in this body in terms of eating. So, all that life comprises of from birth to death, everything that a human could have or could use, one has to see that in connection with sacrifice. When we speak of sacrifice, the idea that the English word sacrifice could represent and the conception that the Sanskrit word yajna could represent is a little different. The English word sacrifice would mean that you have to give up something, or occasionally it could mean that you offer that which you have. Yajna, yagya, or yagna, according to whatever dialect, accent you use, comes from the root yaj. Just as bhajan comes from bhaj, yajna comes from yaj. There are various meanings to yaj, but typically the most accepted meaning of yaja is to be happy, to offer that one is simply a caretaker of. One is simply being a part time owner of a facility that has been given to us because of certain reasons, and we have to ultimately give it back. So life has been offered to us. None of us developed our own life. I mean, we did not sit somewhere and decide that now I should start living. Therefore, everything that comes in life is basically an extension of this conception. Hence, we offer it back, not in terms of giving up life, but in terms of our experiences of life. So, how did we happen to possess life in this form? If we accept the Bhagavad Gita, then it is Krishna's agency. Aham sarvasya prabhava. I am the cause of everything, therefore I am the cause of your existence. Mattah sarvam pravartate, and everything else that you possess or you're receiving in life, that too comes from me. So, since we accept the message of the Bhagavad Gita, therefore we accept this proposal of Krishna. Now, we may say that we are very faithful, we may say that we accept Krishna's supremacy, whichever way, whatever helps you sleep well at night, you can use it. There's no force here. There's no pressure that, oh, this is the only way to understand the absolute truth. Yes. Prabhupada says somebody calls the sun, somebody calls it Surya, somebody calls it something else. The sun doesn't really mind. The sun says, all right, as long as you want to have my heat and my light, take it. So basically, whatever helps you sleep well at night, you can call the sun by that name. And if you need the heat and the warmth of the warmth and the light of the sun, it's available. So similarly, that is Krishna's proposal. He says if you have a better analysis, you have a better conclusion, or you have a better theory, I'm open to it. Till the time you don't have a better theory, here is my proposal. I'm the cause of everything, and all that happens in your life is coming from me. So the basic ingredients of that is coming from Krishna. We are simply processing it according to our abilities. So since we process it, we have some part, we have some claim to the existence of that object. For example, I can pay a carpenter to work on the furniture at my apartment. So the carpenter can let people know, hey, this is what I do. Here are pictures of what I've done. But ultimately, the carpenter has to give back the furniture to me once it's done. Because I have employed the carpenter's services. The carpenter can lay claim to the creativity. However, it would be very nice of the carpenter to also state that unless and until they had employed me, I could not have brought forth this creativity. If I had not been employed, I did not have the facility to bring forth this creativity. Similarly, we may, let's say, we may expand our family. All right. Now, some may accept that as Krishna's grace, God's blessing, that it is by God's grace that family is expanding. Others are like, all right, Take some responsibility, isn't it? So we accept that responsibility. However, the ability to expand one's family, that is Krishna's grace. How we expand it could be our contribution. Now, if that ability to expand were not given by Krishna, I may do whatever I want. Yeah? If the government, let's take another example, there's the biological process and there's the other process of adoption. If the city decides adoption laws change, or the city decides that you are not capable of adoption, I may want to expand my family. So the city allows me to do that. The community allows me to do that. So when I tell the children that grow up in the family, we are your sole caretakers, that would be a little unfair. We have to let them know that it is a city also that has played a part. So this is called as yajna. Now if you try to understand this concept from the point of the English word, from the perspective of the English word sacrifice, you really have to stretch it a bit. But if you understand what yaj dhatu means, it means being the caretaker for some time of someone else's facility, we are offering it back. That is, so yajna means to offer. And then you have to expand on this understanding. Caretaker for some time, another's facility, and we offer that back. What do we get in return? We get to enjoy the facility for some time. And in return, there could be some remuneration coming. That, oh, you did well, I'm happy with you, here's something else for you. So that is called as shishta. Yajna shishta. Remnants. So the word shishta will also be used in this verse. Shishtamrita. Yes? Yajna shishtamrita. So there's some remuneration coming. If we are honest, we offer it back. Having taken the benefit or having had the pleasure or feeling good about the processing that we did when it was under our care, we offer it back. So they say, hey, you return it as it is. We are very pleased with you. Take some remuneration. So we have offered it. In return, we get some remuneration. We get some gift. So that is called as yajna shishta, the remnants of sacrifices. Now, such yajna shishta or remnants could be amrit. For who? Who's yajna with? Sarve peyate yajna vido. The remnants are not always amrit. Because if I do a sacrifice, I get the remnants. You have not done the sacrifice, therefore, those remnants are not for you. Hence, you seeing me having those remnants, that remuneration, there is a possibility you could feel not happy. Therefore, for you, it could be poison. For someone else's remuneration, somebody else could feel that that is poison, whereas the person who has the remuneration finds it as amrita. So they very specifically Krishna says yajna vido. What is yajna with? With means knower. So one who knows that they have performed the yajna, or the performer, yagyavit, the performer here, somebody who performs the yajna in knowledge. There was a boy. If you, I haven't found an English version of this couplet, but let's see if I can translate it. So a little boy had to write a poem back in India, and the language was Hindi, one of the regional languages in India. Yeah. I come from India, so some of my references are very limited according to the geographical location that I belong to. Write an essay on the cow. So he writes in Hindi. Cow is called as Gai in Hindi. The cow is my mother. So in Hindi writes, Gai hamari mata hai, आगे कुछ नहीं आता है. So the cow is our mother, and I do not have anything else more to write. That's the end of my essay. So in Hindi, it sounds a little more rhyming. गाय हमारी माता है, आगे कुछ नहीं आता है. So yes.
So there is something about Bel Hamara Baap hai, and I forgot that.
So now it goes to for evaluation. So the teacher is evaluating the essay. So the teacher says, all right, the teacher gives C with a remark in Hindi. बैल हमारा बाप है.
Number dena paap hai. Number dena paap hai. I remember now. Did I remember?
So the teacher gives a C and adds certain remarks saying that just as a cow is the mother, the male cow, that is the bull, is the father. So the idea of mother and father typically is that mothers are a little lenient. Father is a little more strict. So it says since the bull is the father, therefore it would be injustice to give you passing marks. All right. So गाय हमारी माता है, आगे कुछ नहीं आता है. बैल हमारा बाप है, नंबर देना पाप है. All right.
Maybe I wrote this essay. Because I know very well.
Sometimes we wish that we could remember verses like that. Or prayers, these rhymes have been with us for almost 40 years, 50 years of our life. Isn't it? Like Sangsara Davana Lalita Loka Tranaya. But anyone asks us, Guy Hamara. All right.
Because of our interest? Is it because of the interest or?
Yagyavit. When one is in the position where one understands what one is doing, whether it is learning, whether it's dealing, one understands it has some value for one. You feel that it has a certain value for me. I have to retain this. Otherwise, for the untrained eye, glass can be appear like a diamond, or a diamond could be trashed off like broken pieces of glass. For the untrained eye, isn't it? What makes the eye trained to see the value of a diamond or the value of glass? learning, knowledge. So Yakyavit, one who knows the purpose of the sacrifice for oneself and one's relationship with this creation. It's not just oneself. That's not what yajnas are about, because yajna is about the Supreme Lord. There's always the understanding of Brahman. Always. Um, many years ago, I had visited a holy place in India, Chitrakuta. It is the place where the Supreme Lord, in the form of Lord Ramachandra and his eternal energy, Sita Devi, they lived there in the shelter of a mountain, huge mountain called as Kamatgiri. So we were staying in an ashram there, a holy place. So there are many ashrams, like spiritual lodgings. Yeah. Spiritual 7-Eleven, so something like that. So we were staying there, and they served us food, prasad. So they would come asking us if we needed more. We were all sitting down, and they would be passing down that line of all the people eating. They would go down, up and down that line, and they would ask us, "Would you need some more bread? Do you need some more stew?" Basically, they asked roti, dal, veggies, vegetable preparations. So they'd come, they'd say, "Roti Ram, Roti Ram, Roti Ram, Roti Ram." Ram is the name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So bread, the form of bread in India could be called as roti. Stew could be called as, or lentil stew is called as dal. Vegetable preparations are called as sabji. All right. So they'd come with bread. Roti Ram, Roti Ram. Would you like some roti Ram? So you're after some time you get confused whether they're calling us, addressing us with the suffix ram, or they are addressing the roti with the prefix ram. Roti ram. It will be very confusing. If you get confused, you're like, oh my god, they're calling me ram. Then dal ram, dal ram, dal ram. Then they'll get some salt if you need salt. Salt they call as, they call as lanka. Salt and mirchi both. Uh, chili is lanka because burns. Lanka burning. Lanka ram, and we're like, Lanka ram. So there's always the presence of the Supreme Lord. For somebody who is understanding their each and every action of theirs as a blessing of the Supreme Lord. So that is called as yajna with. So sarve peyete yajna vido, sarve peyete, ete, all of these. So obviously for the past weeks, if Krishna had known that we would be doing these verses every week, then maybe he wouldn't have said peyete. He would have said peyete weeks. Week ekam week ekam week. So peyete, because he was having a conversation with Arjuna, so he goes this, and all of these Arjuna, all of these sacrifices, all of these yajnas, when being performed by the knower of sacrifices, the one who performs sacrifices in knowledge, that is yajnavit. Now there is another knower of the sacrifices, that is yajna purusha. So there is the person who performs the sacrifices, the performer, and there is a person who is the wholesome form of the sacrifices, including the performer. That is called as Purna Brahma or the Supreme Lord. However, here Yajnavidha is being referred to the performer. So the performer of sacrifices, Yajnashishtamrita bhujo bhujaha, will get remnants. Basically, if you're speaking of fire sacrifices, then all that one gets is burnt remnants. So bhuja. However, during this process of doing the sacrifices and ultimately getting the remnants, between these two points, transformation is taking place. There's a transformation that is happening within the performer. That is called as Yajna Shapita Kalmasha. The Yajna takes the performer and its grips, like really holds the performer. Uh, Imagine, let me just digress. Imagine you have a container with a certain object in it, substance in it. It could be solid or liquid. That is really very, very sticky in nature. So there is one way that you kind of scrape it out. The other way is shake it. So kshapita is something similar. The yajna shakes you. The yajna scrapes off all that is unnecessary. And what is the unnecessary aspect within the performer? Kalmasha, the impurities. Kshapita. Shapita means scrubs it off, scrapes it off, shakes it to dislodge it. That is what a yajna does. Now, if one is not very careful, if we are sitting or if we are participating in a fire sacrifice, we could, you know, it's like having a mask on. So we are completely masked on, top to bottom, physically, intellectually, and spiritually. So while the scraping process is taking place, we are like, no, 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 no. I don't want to be inoculated with this. I want to stay immune from this. So when the performer doesn't participate, one may just get the remnants. One may have spent time for the sacrifice, but there is no Shapita Kalmasha. So Yajnavidha is very important. Now, certain points to consider here is the performer, the transformation, the remnants. Remnants is Amrita, nectar, and finally Brahma Sanatanam Yanti, also reaching to the platform of Brahma. You could use it as Sanatan Brahma or Brahma Sanatanam, Brahma that is Sanatan, or the realm of eternality, bliss, and happiness. Satchidanand. So these are four aspects of today's verse. So we've discussed about Yajnavidha, we've discussed about Kalmasha Shapita. Kalmasha Shapita means transformation, where all the impurities are dislodged so that we are purified, and then Shishtamrita, we get nectar as remnant. The quality of sacrifice, especially fire sacrifices, because most of the mention of sacrifices is in terms of fire sacrifices. Typically, it's fire sacrifice. And the reason fire sacrifices have been glorified in the scriptures is that fire is always unbiased in its treatment of whatever commodities is offered to it. Fire is completely unbiased. As long as fire can consume a particular object, fire consumes it and ultimately turns it only to ash. So if you offer pink, fire turns it black. If you offer red, fire turns it black. If you offer blue, fire turns it black. If you offer black, fire still keeps it black. So the idea is, if you want to exist as Satchid Anand, then your actions should be offered to an element that is so unbiased. It will give you the result that you want, and there is no dichotomy there. Therefore, fire sacrifice is again and again emphasized. The idea is, when you are sitting there in the fire sacrifice and when you are offering the ahuti, when you are offering whatever the procedure demands, you offer clarified butter, ghee, you offer the sacrificial wood into it, you offer uncooked grains into it, sometimes you may even offer cooked grains into it. When you make the offering, you have to understand that fire is going to consume every offering and return it back as sacred ash. Remember, you take the ladle, some ghee is added to it, and everyone puts that tika, that dot on the forehead. If you look at the dot, now typically, if you look at the various kinds of tilak we all put, then, oh, are you coming from the ISKCON temple? Are you coming from the Swaminarayan temple? Are you coming from the Durga temple? But for a fire sacrifice, the dot, no one knows from which sacrifice you're coming. And that is the non duality of the remnants of fire sacrifice. Therefore, it is Amrita, because Amrita is that which frees you from all kinds of dualities and leads you to a realm of singularity. What is the realm of singularity? Brahma. Hence, Yanti Brahma Sanatanam. So that is one aspect of fire sacrifices. So if we have an opportunity to be participating in a fire sacrifice, this is one meditation that you can have. My dear Lord, who's present here in the form of this Yagna Kunda or the Yagya, the sacrificial fire, kindly accept my intelligence and let it also be transformed into Brahma. Brahmagno Brahmahutam. Brahmaiva tena kartavyam Brahma karma samadhina. So that is the opportunity, that any other sacrifice that does that, any other element that does that, although water is purifying, no. Earth is also purifying, no. You put, the earth may not be able to dissolve certain, turn everything to dust. Fire does that. Even the harshest of elements, if you keep it sufficiently in fire, it will melt, and finally fire will turn into carbon, dust. Can earth do that? Certain elements, heart, bones that are really difficult to dissolve, stays for years and years and years. Water, same thing. Air, similarly. Fire, definitely. Hence, in the Vedic tradition, fire sacrifices are so relevant for the philosophical vision that they provide us. Plus, it also gives you some warmth in winter. Now, in India, typically there are 3 seasons. Typically, if you see, most of the tithis for fire sacrifices would, look at it, the winter season. So many marriage tithis, everything sacrifice. Chaturmas, not many. The rainy season. But as soon as the rainy season ends, people are like hungry for sacrifices in terms of having the children married or getting married. So every Vedic tradition, marriage in every Vedic tradition has a fire sacrifice. Keeps you warm. So in winter, if you get warm, it is nectar. Yajna Shishtamrita Puja. Yajna Shishti is Amrita. And if you have the philosophical bent of mind, then what you get is Amrit in the form of the absolute truth. Therefore, Krishna has described that um, when you do sacrifices, there are benefits that you desire, and there are benefits that could come as a distraction as added benefits. And for a spiritual seeker, those may be undesirable benefits, but the benefits come. And what are the benefits as? Bhog and Aishwarya. But for somebody who likes Bhog and Aishwarya, it is Amrit, it is nectar. Therefore, Yajna Shishta Amrita Bhra. Now, Yajna Shishta is specifically also referred to as food, as sanctified food that one can accept for one's sustenance. That is also one of the understandings of Yajna Shishta, which basically means you offer food to Krishna, Krishna gives it back to you, and you accept it as prasad. There are three ways that food can be available to us. Two ways are the ways that humans accept. The third way is the way that a person with a human body, but the consciousness is definitely below human. Or if we just divide existence into human kingdom and animal kingdom, so animal consciousness. So, what are the two ways that human consciousness accept food as? First is food that has been offered to the Supreme Lord. We accept those remnants as prasad. Or food that has been accepted by the devotees of the Lord, and we accept those remnants as food for ourselves. These are two recommended ways of accepting food. Correct? It's very simple to understand, very, very practical. If you want to make it esoteric, you can, whatever helps you sleep at night. If the esoteric understanding helps you feel happy in life, use esoteric understanding. If the practical understanding helps you be happy in life, use that. So, what could be the practical understanding? The Supreme Lord is trustworthy. So, if that which comes from the Supreme Lord, you have to accept, then you can place trust in it. And especially food, you after you eat food, you cannot say, did I eat something that is going to be nutritious for me or that is going to harm me? Once you've eaten it, it's done. So, from the practical point of view, since it has been offered to the Supreme Lord is trustworthy. Therefore, we have received food from a trustworthy source. Similarly, if the food has been accepted by a devotee of the Lord, since the devotee of the Lord is trustworthy, we accept that food. The third way that humans can consume food, but however, it is not recommended for somebody who wants to be in human consciousness. Because that is the way that animals eat food. So, although one has a human body, if there is animal consciousness, then there is a third way of consuming food, and that is food which is unoffered. Now, unoffered food could come from anywhere. Basically, we are trusting, putting our trust in that which is unknown. So, if you put trust in something that is unknown, if it benefits us, luck is on our side. If it does not benefit us, it harms us, that is what we paid for. We took that deal. So, that is a practical understanding. What is the best way to feel safe while accepting food? Cook it yourself and eat. You don't need anyone's sanction to tell you that this is most trustworthy. Hence, in the Vedic tradition, typically people who are very, very attentive about what they eat only what they cook themselves. All right. So, this is the understanding of Yajna too. And if one is able to understand these concepts, then Yanti Brahma Sanatana. So, not only does one get the benefit of the Amrit, but Yanti Brahma Sanatanam from the Vaishnav concept, from the Gaudiya Vaishnav concept, Srila Prabhupada puts that as the final phrase, or one could associate with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Basically, it means Yajna could also offer you the ability to receive Krishna Prem. It could offer you, not that it will always give you the benefit of having Krishna Prem. Not always. For example, somebody gives me a check worth 100K dollars and I misplace it. I misplaced a check. What happens? The check still has its value. However, since I have misplaced it, I have distanced myself away from the benefit that the check can give me. So similarly, if one is not in the proper consciousness, one is not Yajnavita. Even if one receives the remnants of Yajna, since one distances oneself in terms of being not consciously aware of how Yajna Shishta can give us Brahma Sanatan or Krishna Prem, one is not getting that benefit. For example, when Lord Nrsimhadev appeared, there are all classes of people there. There are some that were on the side of Hiranyakashipu, and there were some that were on the side of the demigods. There were the demigods, the Devatas there, Brahma was there, Shiva was there, the Vidyadharas were there, the Charanas were there, the Rishis were there, everyone was there. It was full house. And there was Hiranyakashipu with all of his friends. So when Lord Nrsimhadev appeared, the form was so fearful that those who knew Nrsimhadev, they stayed at a distance. Those who were really on friendly terms with Nrsimhadev, they kept their distance. But those who are foolish enough not to understand that what we see. Now Hiranyakashipu trusted in the philosophy of what I see is what I believe. So what he saw and what his friends saw, they decided that no, we are going to be transcendental to that. So where they should not have tried, that is where they try to transcend. They try to transcend the ignorance to super ignorance. And they jumped into, just as moths jump into fire, They jumped into that battle. Now all of them were seeing Nrsingadev. They were all running towards Nrsingadev. Although physically they were close to Nrsingadev, on the level of consciousness, they're actually running far, far away from Lord Nrsingadev. The demigods were keeping their distance, but because their consciousness was favorable towards Nrsingadev, they could still feel love for Nrsingadev. So they had Krishna Prem, love of God. Hiranyakashipu and his friends, although they were approaching God physically, in fact, they could think of nothing else but Nrsingadev because they wanted to challenge him and defeat him. The demigods had sufficient time to think, should we approach him or should we stay away from him? But because the demigods, their consciousness, the devatas, their consciousness was favorable towards Nrsingadev, they were Yagyavit. They got Krishna Prem. And the rest of the crowd there, they simply met that death at the hands of Nrsingadev. So all they could say is, hey, all the rest of you, you have died at the hands of impersonal time. We we got our death at the hands of Nrsingadev. That is the only credit that they have. So they could not achieve Brahma Sanatanam or Krishna Prem. So in Krishna consciousness, we try to practice such that all of our activities is a sacrificial offering unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of God is all attractive. At the same time, the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is non dual, totally unbiased, just as fire is non dual, unbiased, completely. In the Mahabharata, there is the episode of Mayadanav. One Mayadanav person was there who would have been killed by Arjuna because Arjuna has lit the forest on fire and he could have died. So he was very intelligent. He escaped. Arjun could not see him, Krishna saw him. So Krishna sent his weapon after him. So now he realized that, hey, I tried to be safe from Arjun. So Arjun did not notice me, but Krishna noticed me. Now I'm not safe. So he goes and takes shelter of Arjun. He says, I come to take your shelter. So Arjun says, all right. So then Krishna's weapon comes. Now Krishna's weapon is confused. So it goes back to Krishna. So Krishna says, all right. If Arjun has given shelter to Mayadanav, then I have to accept it. Completely unbiased. Totally unbiased. That is how Krishna is. So Krishna's lotus feet, non-dual. If we offer our actions as sacrificial offerings unto Krishna's lotus feet, then all of our actions would be free from the impurities that may be there within our actions. Shapita Kalmasha. And then we get the remnants. What is the remnants? Now, if you are offering food to Krishna, we get back that food. If you are offering the house to Krishna, we get back that house. We can live. If we are offering our intelligence to Krishna, then we still have that intelligence, good intelligence. And we offer our consciousness to Krishna, We receive that consciousness. The only difference, we receive back the same consciousness. The only difference is now, before we get it back, when we made an offering, it was a sacrificial offering. It was bhoga for Krishna. Now, when we receive it back, it has Krishna's blessings in it. So it is prasad of Krishna. And if we miss out, if we have put on the immune cloak, we just go about our actions, then we'll get the remnants. Prabhupada would say that somebody is called as Nayana Sukh, but is blind. Nayana Sukh means a pleasure to anyone's eyes, one who gives pleasure to someone's eyes, or one who has pleasure with his own vision. So they name a devotee, they name a child Nayan Sukh, however, the child is blind. So even if people, when they address him as Nayan Sukh, they feel a little uncomfortable. Oh, the child is blind and I'm addressing that child as Nayan Sukh. The child also does not get the benefit of what the name implies. Similarly, we may have named our homes as Vrindavan, or we may have put our registration plate as Hare Krishna on the car. Inside the car, if there is uh, fresh fruit from Walmart and we forget to offer it to Krishna, so although the car or a house is Vrindavan, we have cloaked ourselves with the immunity cloak that I will not receive the blessings of Krishna. So, task done. The fruit is still there, we are still going to eat it, but there will be no transformation. We missed out on that opportunity. Hence, Yajnavid, that point is very important. We have to be always conscious of all our dealings. So I'll stop here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Any comments or any other points to be added? Any questions? Hare Krishna.
You did not bring up anything about Sankirtan Yeti. I was just wondering.
Sankirtan Yajna? Okay. Um, would you want me to bring it up?
I was just saying that, many times they say, the Yagi we do is Sankirtan Yagi. So.
Yeah. I was trying to just restrict myself to what Prabhupada has given in the purport and what the verse mentions. However, that is very relevant, Sankirtan Yajna. If we are sitting in our car and the car's registration plate is Haribol, yes? And if we are on the phone talking to another devotee, I'm like, hey, Haribol devotee, what Hare Krishna? We're talking to our son and a son or a daughter or someone in a family. He's saying, Hare Krishna, what Hare Krishna? This task is not done. So although it is Sankirtan, it falls in the category of Namabhas. Namabhas Sankirtan. It is Stobhan Namabhas. So we have to be careful. We have a great opportunity to do Sankirtan. So whenever we are out on the streets or at home or in programs doing Sankirtan, everything is favorable. If you're conscious enough, even when the circumstances are not favorable, we'll try to do Sankirtan such that we can get the mercy of Krishna. Is that all right? Thank you for bringing it up. Anything else? Yes.
I would like to say, Prabhu, the point you made about the Chapati Ram, Chapati Ram, I really like it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I was very fortunate to have that experience. So all glories to all those saints there.
It's in the UP or where is it?
Chitrakoot?
Oh, Chitrakoot.
Chitrakoot is an MP.
In UP, whenever they used to just measure something, like 1 kg is 1 ram, 2 ram, 2 ram.
2 ram.
So like in
We also have that experience.
villages always they used to have it.
Yeah. Hmm.
So that they don't forget it.
Yeah. So just imagine, we are like Pizza Prashad Hare Krishna.
Pizza.
We are Hare Krishnas.
It's a good idea. It's a good idea.
Good teacher, Maharaj.
Very heavy. All music.
That's good. That's a good way to transform our day-to-day action.
We had a devotee named Rajeshwar Ramchandra. So he returned an email to us. To go with the piano. Remember Rajeshwar Ramchandra was sending email to us? Haribol. One Haribol. We call each other Haribol, and she calls me Haribol. I call her Haribol. So he sent a whole email on the significance of Haribol. Haribol is used for calling. Haribol is like angry man. Haribol. Sometimes wife shows you Haribol. So the Haribol is so many different meanings.
Yes.
I had a question. With regards to Yajnavid, sometimes they say that even if you don't know, it's like medicine, it still works. So in terms of like your Namabas, has some efficacy but doesn't have full efficacy. Is that the difference between knowing and not knowing?
Sure. Yes, that is definitely that is how it works. Yajna always works. There's always remnants. The only difference is that sometimes when we are getting ourselves treated through pharmaceutical means, it will always work because it's dead matter treating another dead matter.
They're using that analogy, but I was wondering how does it work for Yajnavid? I mean, because they don't know, are they getting absolutely zero benefit or is it just that they're getting less benefit?
Oh, they get benefits of Bhog and Aishwarya.
So they're getting less benefit.
So they get benefits that are not desirable, however, they feel that it's desirable. So that is the benefit that they get. Krishna Prem, they're immune to it. If they're not consciously wanting it, they won't have it.
That's true for all forms of spiritual advancement. You must understand what you're doing.
Yes, there are every concept always has certain exceptions. So there's always the exceptions or the exception of receiving plain mercy. However, people who think that they could, or if the intelligence convinces us that hey, we could take this shortcut, or we could actually apply for receiving complete mercy, most probably that won't work. Because the understanding of mercy is that it goes to the person who feels that they're most undeserving. That's what mercy typically means. That mercy always is attracted by those who feel that they're the most undeserving to get mercy, to receive mercy.
And the term knowing, what does it mean to know something? Because some people say like, oh, I'm not really a Sanskrit scholar. I mean, I read the Bhagavad Gita, and I kind of understand the words, but they don't really. I mean, I couldn't explain it to somebody else and say that. So, what does it mean to know something? Because they're saying that it's really vital to understand what you're doing to get the real benefits from it. How some people say, well, they say the women, Vaisya Sudras, the less intelligent people, right? So they don't really understand certain things. So what do we mean by knowing? Does it mean to really philosophically understand it? Does it mean to understand the essence? What does knowing mean? To be conscious? Is that philosophical?
Knowing means I would again be repeating that phrase, whatever helps you sleep well at night. So if you are convinced that you've understood the concept and it works for you, not just convinced on the imaginative plane, but on the plane of realization, if that works for you, if something works for you, you sleep well. You feel relieved, you feel fulfilled, you feel satisfied, isn't it? So if somebody is trying to understand the message of the Bhagavad Gita and they're not able to understand it, so obviously there's some more knowing. But if they understand it, that means they know. We could always try and explain to someone what we understand of that subject matter. And we could use, let us say, uh, similar resources or resources that we share in common. For example, Prabhupada gives an example that if I don't know where the moon is, what is the moon? Someone says, hey, there's a moon in the sky. I'm like, where? I'm looking at the moon. But I don't know what the moon is. Or maybe my eyes are not able to see the moon also. So then they use some reference point that is common to both of us. So they say, look, can you see that tree, the branch, right above that? Do you see the moon? And I'm like, oh yeah, now I get to see the moon. So there could be facilitators who help us understand a subject matter according to how they understand it. And they could use common resources that both of us understand. Ultimately, once I understand it, then I'm no longer searching for it. I'm no longer wanting to know about it because I now understand it. So, what does it mean to know? It means that the search for that particular aspect is over. So, Yajna is somebody who knows why they are performing that sacrifice. What is the purpose? The purpose is, if it is Shapita Kalmasha, that is their purpose, then they would try to achieve that. If the purpose is Yagyashishtamrita, that is what they would want to achieve, or both. If the purpose is Brahma Sanatanam, then they try to achieve that, all of the three or any combination of the three. If the purpose is something besides that, then that is also what they would get, Bhoga and Aishwarya. Okay?
Prabhuji, if you don't mind, Prabhu, getting late for.
It's getting late?
Sorry, because I do discern.
Sure.
Well, I'll ask you again.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai.